Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. A huge welcome to Produce, Mix, Fix and Conquer. My name is Rich Steve Beck. I'm the founder of this awesome community. So massive welcome. We've got a fantastic guest coming up today. He's worked with some incredible artists such as Alice Cooper, Paul McCartney, Taylor Swift, just to name a few. He works in Nashville and has got a fantastic studio over there. And we're going to introduce him very shortly and bring him live. Mr. Justin Cortelyou. How you doing, Justin?
Good. How you doing?
I'm really good, man. So good to see you. How's things over in Nashville?
It's a beautiful day. Things are starting to open up. We're I've got my vaccination. I feel I'm starting to finally get out and be a human again. So yeah, we're doing great here.
Oh, amazing, man. So great. Love seeing the studio as well. Love the colors and the vibe going on, man. Looks great.
Thank you. Yeah, we can get into that. But that was an important part of the design is to get the vibe right and get the colors. We can change it any color that we want, and it's really really helpful for a little bit of inspiration.
Amazing, brilliant. So let's kick off with how we've had conversations with all our other pro engineers that we've had a chat with over the last few weeks. So what music did you listen to as a kid when you were growing up?
I listened to my favorite band when I really started to get into music was Soul Asylum. The Grave Dancers Union record was it was life changing for me. That was amazing. But in that same era, like in high school, I was a bit of a guitar shredder, so I was a huge Dream Theater fan. I liked Joe Satriani and Eric Johnson. I was just amazed at their guitar prowess and everything. And let's see. Other than that, I played guitar in a rock band. I liked old Metallica was great.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of rock is kind of my foundation. But then I played trombone, and so I played in symphonies. I played in jazz bands and everything. So I enjoyed that music too. And just kind of by default, I would listen to it, through, practicing or rehearsals or, performances and stuff like that. I enjoyed it. That was enough for me. So I would never seek it out, just for casual listening. But yeah, that's kind of where and pop. I love, pop, like old Michael Jackson. I grew up on Thriller, and Toto 4 was amazing. ELO Time, one of my favorite records of all time. Yeah, a bunch of different artists and genres and well, you know what? In Toto 4, so my dad had the record, and I remember listening on headphones to Rosanna and Africa and looking through the liner notes, and there was a photo. It was Dave Hungate and Steve Lukather and all the guys. It was a black and white, and they must have been in either on stage or in a rehearsal hall or something like that playing. And I stared at that photo for hours, going, "Man, that looks cool," and that kind of started to give me the bug for it, and my dad was into Pink Floyd and Peter Gabriel and all of that, so that was always on rotation in the house, and Fleetwood Mac and all of that. So yeah, that's my base.
That's a really good base, though, man. That's so many great bands in a nutshell, though, isn't it? Really,
Oh man. Oh, so good. Oh, and the first CD I ever bought was, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Pearl Jam 10, and it was in the long box, and I mean, that was just such a killer record. Nirvana Nevermind, and STP, and man, that was a good time for music.
I think you're a similar age to me by the sounds of things, because I know that when I was growing up in the 90s, that, when I was at secondary school, I think high school over in the States, and I remember that my French teacher, of all people, he said to me, "Oh, so you like Pearl Jam?" And they're going, "Well, I've only ever heard one song." He goes, "Wait, right, let me make you a tape." And I've told the story a couple of times before. And he says, "I'll put Pearl Jam 10 on one side of the tape for you, and I'll put Verses on the other, and I put that in the tape deck when I got home, man." And it blew my mind. That was it, hooked, absolutely hooked.
Oh man, it's so good. I mean, I just played. So my daughter, when she goes to bed, she's 5.
Yeah.
We read 2 books and we listen to 2 songs, and they have to be calm songs. And so I'm always trying to think, so I'll play her some kind of a mix. She loves, Alison Krauss, and, so some of that more acoustic music, and then Imogen Heap, and but then I played her Release by Pearl Jam, because it's like that. It's so kind of sleepy and dreamy, and it was such a cool vibe, and she loved it. Which made me feel good. I feel like I'm doing my part as a dad to to bring her some good music.
That's great, man. That's so cool. So my boy's he's 3.5, and his since the age of 1, this is the God's honest truth, his favorite song is Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones, and he loves the Hey Ho bit, Hey Ho, Let's Go, and he just sings it in the back of the car, and they're going, "Oh, come on, be a punk rocker, that'd be great."
That would be amazing. You're starting them off right. That's awesome.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. So instruments. So you talked about how you were playing. So if I'm right in saying, so trombone, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And guitar. So which one did you favor more? Which instrument did you take to more?
Guitar. And that's kind of what got me into this, because I would get all these at the time it was like Musician's Friend catalogs, and Thoroughbred Music had a catalog, Sam Ash. Yeah, I don't know if those are over in the UK or not, but
yeah, I've got similar.
Okay. Yeah. So, and Carvin, I would get all those catalogs in the mail, and I would just sit and read them. And because I fantasize about having a Les Paul, and in my bedroom, and this is kind of maybe dorky, but I'd read all the Guitar Player and Guitar World magazines, and I take out these it's so stupid, but the ads of like Joe Perry playing a solo on stage, and it was like a Gibson ad, and I cut that out and I put it on my wall, and so my wall was lined with all these like ads of these guitar gods and everything, and it was probably really, really dorky, but it kept me inspired. I loved it, and I mean I like playing trombone too, but that it started off as okay, well, you have to put in your hour of practice every day, you have to learn these scales, you have to do this and that, and so it was much more kind of work and school related, as opposed to guitar was just I couldn't wait to get off of the bus, run in, turn on my amp, let it warm up a little bit, and just and play as loud as I could until the neighbors got mad. But I mean, I loved it, and I would try to play along with all these songs, and I had a lot of fun, and I kind of miss having that amount of time to just sit there and play and make mistakes and not care, but definitely guitar, and that gear lust kind of it led me into my current role for sure.
Incredible. I remember talking about guitars before we move on. There's a story that I was so determined to change one of my guitar amps when I was about 16. But obviously back then in the UK, you can't drive at that age.
Right.
So my dad said, "Oh no, I can't take you to the music store. I'm really sorry. You're going to have to wait for a day." And I was that determined. I was like, "No, I'm going to take my massive amp on the bus to the music store." All I remember is it's falling over this wall. I went one way, the amp went the other, and the music store, right, I managed to trade in this amp slightly beat up for a new amplifier. So, but if like you said, if you've got gear lust and you're ready for like the next thing, it's like you do anything to get there, don't you?
Anything. Anything. I mean, oh yeah, that was the best thing that could happen to me on a weekend. There was a little mom and pop store called Ron's Discount Music, and the best thing would be if my dad said, "Hey Justin, you want to go to Ron's?" And that would you could say, "Here's $1 million," and well, okay, I would probably accept it and then go to Ron's and buy whatever guitar. But you can do anything else. Say, "Hey, you want to go to amusement park or go whatever," and it wouldn't be nearly as cool as going to Ron's Discount Music. Oh man, so gear lust has been with me for quite some time. I was infected at a young age.
Amazing, man. How did you transition then from being a trombone player and guitarist into mixing and recording? How did that come about?
Well, so I guess I knew nothing about the recording process. Didn't know what an engineer was, what a producer was, what anything about the whole process. And so I got a free, I think it was Mix magazine. I got a free Mix magazine in the mail, and I was looking through, and I saw this guy. And I didn't know what any gear was. I didn't know what a console did or anything. I saw a guy sitting behind the desk, and there was now I know SSL, probably a 4000G at the time. But I saw a screen in it. I thought, what the hell is that? There's a computer in the console? What? So at that point, I was intrigued. I was like, I bet that guy has a really cool job. Yeah. So let me look into that. And there was one of the drummers in one of the bands that we would play with around town. He was actually going to school for recording. He was a year ahead of me. And he went to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University. And I thought, well, maybe that's what I want to do. And so I went and I took a tour, and it was awesome. And so that's what set me on the journey. But even in school, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know anything. I'd made one 4-track recording, and it was awful. I didn't know what mixing was. I didn't know what anything was. And we recorded to a 4-track. It was either Tascam or Fostex or something. And then like the mix was like these 4 faders, and I didn't know what I was doing. I think I panned the bass to the left, or all the drums. It was on one, the Radio Shack mic over top of the drum kit, and we printed it to a shitty cassette player, and that was our demo. We sold it at gigs, and that was that.
That's absolutely crazy. Well, I've still got knocking around my old studio, and I've not used it for years, but I recently found this monstrosity.
Is it a VS80? VS880?
Yeah, VS880. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of back in the day,
That's amazing. That is what my friend's band, they pulled their money and they bought one of those, and they did their big demo, and it sounded way better than the one that I did. And they did their demo on that, and the band's name was Bent Wookie, because I don't know if you're a Simpsons fan, but I think it was not Milhouse, but Ralph or something. He sat down and sat on his Chewbacca action figure, and he said, "I bet my Wookie." Anyway. Oh man, that brought back memories. Thank you.
So good, man.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you break it out? Do you ever use it?
No, I've not broken it out for years. Absolutely, yeah. I really should do just for fun. To be fair,
Yeah.
I've forgotten how to use the damn thing, so it's like, you know.
If I'm not mistaken, it was confusing anyway. Like if you knew what you were doing, it was confusing because weren't there like virtual tracks or
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I remember struggling with it. But then again, I didn't know anything about recording at all at that point.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Cool, man. So tell us about the next part of your journey then. So when you started, so when did you, so where did you grow up? Sorry, what city did you grow up?
So I grew up just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was a little coal mining town called Bavard, PA. We had 3 streets, and that's about all I can say about Bavard. But it was rural Western Pennsylvania. So a lot of farmland, and it was a big high school. And we had there was a big, marching band, and they had a jazz band there. And then I was lucky enough. I played in a bunch of outside symphonies and jazz ensembles. Played with one of the college ensembles, and so I was super into music. I knew I was going to go into music, and it was just whether it was going to be performance or. But I couldn't. I wouldn't have done well in performance. I don't have the mindset to sit down and practice and practice and practice and practice.
Yeah.
But so I went to MTSU, and then I got an internship with Bill Vorndick, who's if you look up Bill, he's like the bluegrass guy. He I think he was the first person to work with Alison Krauss. And he did a lot with like Ralph Stanley, and he was Marty Robbins' engineer. And he's got tons of stories, and like just a master at acoustic, miking techniques and like old school engineering. And so I got to really have a great relationship with him and learn a lot about the acoustic miking side of things and how to do things the right way. And so that was great. And then the first day with him, we were transferring files. I just sat there. I didn't know what I was doing. I think that's a common theme through this. But I was just there, and the first day was at Backstage at Soundstage Studios in Nashville with Chuck Ainlay, and so I got to at least kind of meet Chuck. I'm sure he doesn't remember that day at all. But it was a big day for me. First time in a big studio. First time, it was my first internship day with Bill, and I meet this guy Chuck Ainlay, who was in. There was this. It was like Young Guns of Recording was a book. And he was one of the guys talking about Dire Straits and all these other, records that he had recorded. And I thought, oh my God, this is the guy from the book. And so then after my internship with Bill, I thought, you know what, I'm sure he knows me. I'm just going to call Chuck and see if he wants an intern. Like an idiot. Now I would say, no, don't do that. No, you can't do that. So anyway, I just called Soundstage. I said, hey, this is Justin. I'm Chuck. And he picked up and he goes, hey, Justin, how's it going? Like he knew me. I was like, oh man, I'm doing great, Chuck. Thanks. And he thought I was Justin Niebank.
Oh, no way.
Totally different. No, this is Justin Cortelyou. I met you with Bill Vorndick. He's like, oh, it's like, do you want an intern? And he said, I never have interns, but I think I put him on the spot enough that he just said, well, okay. And so I got to work with him and intern with him and learn. And he was working on a Willie Nelson record and a Travis Tritt record and something else. So it was like awesome to just sit in the room, and I didn't do anything, but to watch him work in that capacity. And that led to a gig at Soundstage after I graduated. I was the night manager, and and so on and so forth. I can keep on going if you want.
That's cool, man. Yeah, tell us. It's great.
Okay, so so I was the night manager. So I would do, setups and teardowns, turn the rooms clean, and all that fun stuff. And I'd get there at 4:30 at night. I'd leave at when the sun was coming up. But it was awesome, and I got free studio time. So on the weekends, I didn't work the weekends, but I was there anyway. I was, whoever wanted to record, I would record them and mix them, and I had to be doing that.
Yeah.
And so then a couple years later, have you ever seen the TV show Wings?
I heard of Wings. No, I don't think I've properly watched it before, though.
Yeah, so it was in the kind of 80s and 90s. It was on right after Cheers, and it had this this actress by the name of Crystal Bernard in it, and she had she was dabbling in music also. She had a single with Peter Cetera,
Right.
and she was in one of the studios, and she was doing a demo. And the guy who was engineering it, Billy Decker, he had to leave. He said, "Hey, could you cover it? Just punch in and out. Don't do anything else," because I wouldn't have trusted me either. Like, just don't mess it up. So so I was in there and we were working, and it was kind of she needed some direction, so I started giving her a little bit of advice, like, hey, try singing this way, try putting some emphasis on these words, and then we worked pretty much through the night, and it worked out great. She actually helped me take out the trash, which was cool. Cool. And then we just kept on working together after that, and she was dating Mike Shipley, who was like one of the biggest mixers of all time. And so he heard what we had done, and he thought it was okay. He heard through Crystal about our workflow, and we were working hard. It was like we're doing 36-hour days, which I guess doesn't really work out math-wise. We work for 36 hours or 32 hours or somewhere around there. And then I was just sleeping at the studio. She'd go back to the hotel and take 4 or 5 hours off. Then we'd come back and keep on going. And so Mike needed some help, and they offered to move me out to LA. And so I got to work with Mike Shipley there, and that was amazing. And so I worked with him for a few years. I got to watch him mix, got to learn. He was really good about teaching me things. And I had a room upstairs where I would do editing, and I could watch on a monitor as he was mixing. And I got to bring up his mix on an external. And so when I'd take a break, I just watch him mix and listen, try to figure out what he was doing. Like, why is he adding 1K on the rooms? Why is he taking this out? Why is he doing this? And it was really interesting because you can learn a lot just by observing and trying to figure out what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then he'd undo the solo, and okay, well, that fits. I hear what he was doing. He was trying to get out that ring or that that build up. And so that was incredible. And then after that, I met a producer named Tommy Henriksen, and he was actually having Mike mix some of his records. And so he and I started working together a lot. And then when the recession hit, I convinced them to move to Nashville, where they were still, everyone was making music, and everything was just easier, and it was cheaper than LA. So we moved here. And then the first week we met Bob Ezrin. And so we worked on and I had very little to do with this one, a Peter Gabriel, Lou Reed song. Lou Reed was covering Peter Gabriel's Salisbury Hill.
Oh, wow.
And so we did a little bit of work on that. And Bob liked the workflow because it was LA, and that kind of speed and that kind of part oriented type workflow. And so we just started working with him. And then I worked with Bob for 10, 11 years or so. And then I was presented an opportunity to partner with this studio. So here I am.
Incredible, man. What a journey so far.
It was sorry, I think I wore everyone out. That was a long-winded explanation, but that's it. I have no idea how it all worked out, but it did.
It's incredible. But that's it. I suppose when you take a risk and you say yes to opportunities, then amazing things can happen, man.
Yeah, that's it. And you have to, when an opportunity comes, you have to be prepared to take it, and you have to say yes to the opportunity. And luckily at the time, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any commitments that I needed to keep. I was young, so so it was a lot easier to be kind of fluid, and it worked out great.
Incredible, so incredible. So tell us, so you work with some incredible engineers, so tell us some of the artists that you've worked with, man. It's absolutely phenomenal. So I know that you've worked with Alice Cooper, so tell us about some of the work that you've done with Alice Cooper and also with Hollywood Vampires as well, and some of the work that you've done with those guys.
Yeah, so all of that stems from working with Bob Ezrin. So Bob actually signed Alice originally, and so Bob produced No More Mr. Nice Guy and School's Out, Welcome to My Nightmare, I'm 18, so all of those hits. And when I first started with Bob, we started out on they needed to re-record all of the hits for Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
So we were just doing re-records of No More Mr. Nice Guy and School's Out, and which was awesome. I listened to the to the recording, and then try to match it, try to figure out so on the early stuff they were using Fenders, on the later stuff it was Marshalls, and the bass was a custom, I think it was a custom with a folded horn cab, or so we got to kind of acquire those things and try to figure out what guitars like Michael Bruce was playing at the time, and Glenn, and so anyway, that was awesome. It was really cool to do that, and that kind of built a trust between Bob and I working on that stuff. And then Alice wanted to do another record, and he did he called it the Shriekwell to oh man, I'm losing it. Anyway, Welcome to My Nightmare. It was Welcome to My Nightmare, the Shriekwell. And yeah, so that was a long journey. It was like it took us a year or so to do, but I ended up, I got to mix a lot of live recordings with Alice, and then we did this box set and I actually got to produce the box set with Bob, and it was kind of going into the history back before they were Alice Cooper, the band, was a band. I forget what their names were. Oh man, it's been such a long time, but it was fascinating learning all of the history and the relationship with Shep Gordon and Frank Zappa and Jimi Hendrix and all this. Like there were so many cool connections, with everything, and learning it was fascinating. So so I got to work on that, and then Alice met Johnny Depp on the set of Dark Shadows, and they, Johnny's such a big Alice Cooper fan and music fan in general. So they said, well, we should start a band, and that actually became a thing, and they started the Hollywood Vampires, and that was a crazy record, because it started off, we flew out to LA, and it's Glenn Sobel on drums and Tommy Henriksen on guitar and Johnny Depp on guitar and Bruce Witkin, who was Johnny's friend, he was on bass, and Alice. And it was awesome. Yeah. And then we pivoted and started doing everything at Johnny Depp's house because he had a studio in one of his houses, and so a lot of the stuff started to be recorded there. And Joe Perry was staying at one of the houses, and so he just would show up and lay down on the couch and hey Joe, how's it going? And just keep on editing, and so eventually he ended up playing on it, and then Marilyn Manson would drop by, and so it became this record of all these cool guest artists. And so Brian Johnson came in and he sang on it, and that was in Nashville, and so and that was wild because Brian, he was singing on an it was a Beta 58, and it was in the control room at Bob's studio. And, here he is like standing right next to me. He's holding onto my shoulder as he's singing. And it's like, are you kidding me? This is like AC/DC is like holding onto my shoulder, and my 16-year-old self is like exploding on the inside. Joe Perry's playing guitar, and I had posters of him up on my wall. And it was just unbelievable. And then, we were doing overdubs with Joe Walsh, which was amazing. And we heard word that Paul McCartney was in town, and he may have a day off and he may come in and record. So they extended my stay for a little bit, and sure enough, it worked out. And so the amazing thing is I'd worked on a country record, and I'd gotten a text that morning that said, Jared Neiman's Drink to That All Night has just gone #1. And I was like, that's amazing. So I took a shower, walked up the street to Johnny Depp's house to set up for Paul McCartney. And I'm like, what world is this? What is happening? And it was like the most amazing day. The band was Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums, and Paul McCartney, he played piano and sang and played bass. And then Johnny Depp on guitar, Joe Perry on guitar, Alice Cooper singing backgrounds, and Bob Ezrin producing. And it was just unbelievable.
That's incredible. So how did you did you feel quite a lot of pressure during that session as well, with so many legends in the studio at the same time? Or did you just think, okay, well, this is just like every other day at work? Or how did you handle that, pressure on top of you to get the job done?
Well, it definitely was not like any other day at work. At first. So usually, I'll get maybe a little bit nervous the night before or something, but then once you start working, it's work. It's fine.
Yeah, completely.
And then when Paul McCartney comes in, it's like, oh. So I was nervous, especially at first. And I was nervous when we did the initial tracking with Johnny Depp. I was I was a little bit nervous that day too. But he turns out, like, once he trusts you, then he's just a normal guy.
Yeah, completely.
Who happens to be like Johnny Depp,
Yeah.
And he loves music. He loves music so much. He's got guitars all over his living room, control room area, and he's so passionate about it, which is awesome. Yeah. And so anyway, but that day, I was pretty nervous at first. And at one point, Bob had to leave because he was having dinner with his dad, and Paul still had to play bass on it. So it was up to me to kind of produce the bass part, which, come on, it's Paul McCartney. He invented music. Yeah. So it's probably the easiest gig ever, but I was still stressed. And excuse me, I just ate lunch. So he was playing bass, and he played it down a few times, and he never the bridge or the middle eight he never quite nailed. It was not there was no click involved, and there were these big gaps. So it was tricky no matter who you are to lock in, even with the best player, like, when you have just a kind of like a pregnant pause with no click, it's when do you come in, so he was like, all right, mate, I think that should be it. And he took his bass off, and I had to get on the talkback and say, Mr. Sir Paul McCartney, you didn't quite get the middle eight. Can we do it one more time from the top? But then he nailed it, and he was super cool. He was like, all right, mate. And he played it again. It's like, did I get it? Yeah, thanks. and then he came in, and he sat next to me, and we worked on a vocal sound, and we worked on, a couple of edits here and there, and he was awesome. And then he and Joe Perry and Alice and Johnny sat around and told stories, and I sat in the room thinking, why am I here? This is awesome, but I have nothing to contribute. There is nothing nearly as cool as anything that's going on in these conversations. So anyway, that was a very cool day. I like
it. Completely. Well, Joe Perry as well is like, obviously he's famous for playing his Les Paul. Can you remember what guitar he played on that session, or what amps that he used?
I remember it was a prototype. It was a Joe Perry model, and I think on the back there was a little inscription that said JP1 or something like that. And it was like, I think he played a few different ones, but the one that I remember him playing, I believe it was like a Les Paul type, but I think it only had one pickup. It may have been a P90. I can't remember. But then he was going through I think it was a Morgan amp. I think it was an M. Was it a Morgan?
Yeah.
And it sounded killer. That sounded great. I don't know what cab he was using, but he was just starting to use those. He was kind of he was bragging about those, and it sounded fantastic.
Amazing. And Johnny as well has got a crazy guitar collection. Do you remember what guitars Johnny was using at the time?
He had this 50s gold top that was worth, $300,000 or something like that. He played that, and he had Duesenberg made a guitar for him, and the design, I forget, it's like one of his tattoos or something.
Yeah.
But he played that. He had a couple of Duesenbergs, but it's basically like a museum in his house. I mean, it is unbelievable, his guitar collection. So, but those were, I think, the main ones that he used, especially that Duesenberg. He played that a lot. And amp-wise, it was probably, I don't know. I can't remember.
Incredible, man. Incredible. Todd, thanks so much for sharing that, Justin. So tell us about the stuff that the music that you've worked on with Deep Purple as well. So I know that you've done a couple of projects with those guys. So yeah, tell us more.
Yeah, so we've done, and that again, that was all through Bob, and we did 3 records. Infinite or Infinity, I can't remember. And then Now What, and the one that just came out. What did they? Anyway, so yeah, I've done 3. We did those at the Tracking Room here in Nashville, which had been sold, and I hope they're going to open back up again. But I know it was on the market and it was sold at one point. And I heard rumors that the sale has gone, it didn't go through. So hopefully they'll open. But the Tracking Room is probably one of the only studios that could actually house a band like Deep Purple, because Don Airey, is currently the keyboard player. Because John Lord, he was in ill health, and then he passed actually while we were recording one of them. Anyway, Don God, I love Don. He's amazing. So he uses an A100 and not a B3. It's an A100, and he runs 2 Leslie cabs and a Hughes and Kettner amp at the same time on stun. So it is the loudest. I mean, it is so loud, and it has to be in a big room, or else, with all that sound, it just collapses the room. So, so the tracking room has these giant booths. I mean, the booths are about the size of this control room. And they had, I think, 4 of those, and then this big stone room, and then a giant main tracking room. I mean, it's you just don't see. No one's going to build a studio like that anymore, But it was built kind of late '90s when everything was hot. I guess mid '90s when everything was hopping, and so that was amazing. So that was his setup, and then Steve Morse is the guitarist now, and he runs 2 rigs. He has Engel heads, and he has 1 cab that's just for the dry signal, and then 1 for just the effects signal. So that's a big setup also. And then Roger's got I forget the brand that he uses, but so he's got a big bass rig, and we also take a DI. And then Ian Pays, he's got a rather large kit, and we actually set up the main kit in the main room, and then on the second record that we did, we set up a secondary kit, and there was a stone room. And so just for like kind of 2 different looks at the kit. So, I mean, we're talking about a ginormous setup, all those mics, all those, just all the space that's needed for that. But they are some of the nicest people and so much fun to work. I can't say enough about them. Killer players, awesome people, amazing stories. I mean, when they're telling, Smoke on the Water, when they're telling that story, which is basically the lyrics of the of this song. It's this, if you listen to the lyrics, that is basically how that song was made. It's pretty funny, but I mean, I have such great memories of those records. I mean, great music and great musicians, and Bob would do I think 2 weeks of pre-production. They rented kind of a rehearsal space in Nashville, and then they'd go straight from there. We'd load into the tracking room, and we'd lock out like 2 or 3 weeks and do everything. And it would be long days. We take Sundays off, and then they go, and we do some overdubs, and Bob and I would mix it, and it was awesome.
That's incredible. It's just incredible as well. I think that band, like how many kids learned Smoke on the Water as well. That intro, man. It's just like kind of, if you've got a friend that I'm sure you've done it. A friend that goes, "Oh, I've never played guitar. I'd love to learn guitar." First riff ever.
That's it.
Smoke on the Water,
Yep.
It's got to be
that. Oh man, and that was awesome. It was a lot of fun, and anyway, we'll see if we get to do any more.
Oh, I'd love to see that, man. It'd be great. Fantastic. So some of the other projects that you worked on. So I know that you've done. Is it a live album for Taylor Swift? Is that right?
Yep, it was. So that was that that was a lot of work, a lot more than expected, and just because I'm not sure. I think it was kind of a last minute thought. Well, maybe we'll record it and then we'll do a DVD or something. It wasn't completely fleshed out at the beginning, so we had started out and we got the files in and basically just mix the Speak Now live world tour. I would do the stereo mix with Bob, and then I would print the stems, send it off to Brian Virtue, who would take the stems at another studio, and then spread them out to surround to 5.1, and then we'd send those off to get authored and mastered and then authored and laid in to the DVD. Bada bing, bada boom, and so we got the files in, and we're mixing away, and we still hadn't gotten the video in, and so waiting. We're like, well, when are we getting the video? And then one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, they haven't recorded it yet." Like, wait, this is a live.
What?
This is a live record. What do you mean they haven't recorded it yet? So the performance they loved from like the Chicago show, and then the video, because of personnel and whatever, was being shot in San Diego or some other location. And I'm like, wait a second, how's this gonna work? So needless to say, there was oh man, it was just there was a lot of work that went into just getting the logistics straight. But they synced up. Luckily, everything's so programmed, on a click and everything. Yeah. And they are all playing it. That's all. Like, I don't think there were any tracks. If there were, it was just minimal stuff. But the band is, at least the band in general that she has is killer. So I mean, they're legit players, and they're so good, and they're so rehearsed, and they play the same, that it worked. It was amazing how well it worked. But I had to take the vocals, because you can't fake that. I had to take the vocals from the show and then lay them back in after we'd already done the vocals and everything, and make that sync up. And then it was so much editing with kind of the interstitials and the like getting everything to line up and work properly was tricky and time consuming. And then, so a big part of it was the audience, and you would see, she would walk through the crowd, and you'd see people clapping and saying things here and there, and you want to bring those up in those moments. Sadly, when they originally recorded the audience, they pointed the mics towards the stage, and they were kind of an afterthought. So they were like room mics for, but that doesn't work. You have to mic the audience.
Yeah, completely.
So they hired a sound company, and they went out to the Atlanta show, and they properly mic'd 2 shows of the audience. So we had some good audience to work with, and it was, again, importing all those tracks, and they were mic'd for 5.1, so there were plenty of options, to kind of throw around the surrounds and everything. But getting that to all line up and cutting out the interstitials and getting it was a lot of work. And we had a tight deadline, and we had a 24-hour crew. We hired someone to come in. So I would finish up at, midnight or 1 o'clock, and I'd leave, have this guy print stems to deliver to to Brian Virtue the next day. And then I'd start again. And it was a beast, just for like, it was fun. And I'm so impressed with the band and Taylor as a writer and as a singer, and I mean, unbelievable talents all around. But that particular project, it was very challenging.
Crazy. It just makes you think as well, with the band and the click that they're listening to on stage, to manage for someone to even kind of dream up that idea, going, well, actually, we're going to record the music here, but we're going to do the visuals here. And you've got to, hats off to the band, man. Hats off to you guys for pulling it off as well. That's crazy.
And it's like I said, the band. Oh, and there was one. We had to use a solo from another track, because like her main guitarist, the day that they had filmed in San Diego, I think his mom was ill, and so he had to fly home, so he wasn't there at that show. So it was even a 4th show that we had to use for one of his guitar solos. And but they all played so well. They were all so well rehearsed. That machine, the reason that Taylor is as successful as she is because she works so hard. Her band works so hard. Her like her management, her label. I mean, everything worked, and everyone had talent and work ethic like I've never seen. So hats off to all of them.
Absolutely incredible. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Justin. That's absolutely brilliant, man. Okay, so before we move on, Johnny Reed as well. Tell us about working with Johnny Reed.
So Johnny Reed is an unbelievable artist and one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He was actually here earlier. So this is his studio. He and I partnered on it. So I did a few records with him and through Bob, and we became friends, and he started kind of producing and signing some artists, and so I would work on those, and we developed a really good working relationship and friendship and trust. And he had a house where he had taken a barn. It was a kind of a farm. It wasn't a working farm, but it was on, a lot of land, and he had a barn, and he converted that barn into kind of a recording studio man cave, which was awesome. And then he wanted to turn it into a legitimate studio so that he could do his records there. And then also, records that he has a label, Halo Entertainment. And, so anything that he had signed to Halo, he wanted to record there. So we started kind of planning that out. And then the backup quarterback for the Titans, Matt Castle, knocked on the door and wanted to buy it. And so he said, okay. So he sold his house. And so there went that idea. And at the same time, so we bought another house, and we were thinking about turning one of the rooms into a control room and overdub suite. And then we had a friend of his said, hey, Randy Scruggs, a producer in Nashville, session guy, he's looking to sell his studio, and it's just down the street from Blackbird. You should check it out. And so he looked at it, and he called me over and had me kind of go through it and see. I was like, yeah, this looks pretty cool. A lot of history. Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Dolly Parton, Crosby, Stills and Nash, like all these awesome artists, and records were cut here, but it was in bad shape. I said, yeah, I think, we'll replace, some of the burlap with some, fire code fabric, and we'll, maybe a little bit of paint. It'll be great. So he pulled the trigger, and so we got the studio, and then we started kind of tearing things down, and it was bad.
Oh no.
I mean, we took it down to the studs and had to, it took way longer than we had planned. There was way more work, like all new electrical, all new cabling and proper studio wiring.
Mm-hmm.
And complete facelift of the exterior, the interior. We added beams, and Johnny's lifting beams, and he's putting doors in and stuff. So it was a labor of love. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this studio. But so we opened up officially in March of 2020, which maybe not the best time to open up.
Wow.
But we luckily, Johnny had a record to do, and we had a bunch of projects. This Gramps Morgan reggae record that we just finished up. So throughout the pandemic, we still had plenty of work to do. So we didn't really miss out on too much. And so here we are in the studio.
Incredible, man. Thanks so much for that, Justin. So it'd be great to have a chat with you in a minute about the gear that you use in your studio at the minute, and to completely nerd out and have a look around if you're up for that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Yeah, so tell us before we carry on, so maybe what are some of the favorite of your favorite indie artists that you've worked with that aren't on that many people's radars? It was obviously Nashville, right? It's just we're talking to your friend David Karmusky and Bob Olson a few weeks ago as well.
Yeah.
About the Nashville area and the crazy pool of musicians and talent that you guys have got. It's crazy, man.
There is no other place on earth like Nashville. When it comes to music, it's just there will be a guy from the phone company, working on your line, and he'll come down and say, "Oh yeah, I played on this record." It's like, are you kidding me? And so Johnny, so he's Scottish. He was born and raised in Scotland, and then they immigrated to Canada, and so he's Canadian. But then he moved down here, and he lives in Nashville. And so he had a set of bagpipes that someone had sent him. And he doesn't know how to play the bagpipes, but he had a set of bagpipes there, and he had his cable was being worked on, and the cable guy came in. He goes, "Ah, you got some bagpipes. Those are really nice." He's like, "Really? Yeah, you play?" He's like, "Yeah." So he picked them up and he started playing, and he was awesome.
No way.
It's like, only in Nashville will you have the cable guy also be a professional bagpipist, but the talent pool is insane, and there's so many bands, so many musicians that explanation words will not do it justice. As far as independent artists, currently I'm working with the singer-songwriter and artist Erin Enderland, who she wrote hits for Alan Jackson and Reba, and I was killer songwriter and amazing artist. And I just started working with this Australian artist, and he was actually signed to Sony in Australia, and he moved here like less than a month ago or 2 months ago. And we cut a song last week, 3 songs last week, and he's killer. His name's Wesley Dean. And I think he was Wes Carr. I had worked with him 15 years ago with Tommy Hendrickson when we were working together here in Nashville. So he's amazing. So Johnny had signed this artist, JJ Shiplet, and we did a record. This was several years ago. And it is one of my favorite records. So check out JJ Shiplet.
Yeah, will do.
I forget the name of the record. Something to Believe in. It's so good. This songwriting, his voice, it's out of this world. We just finished a reggae record. Gramps Morgan is his name. And the record, I think it's June when it's being released. I just delivered it to mastering. We just approved the mastering today, which is great. Okay. But the name of that record is Positive Vibration, and we have a few pretty awesome guest artists on it. I don't think I can say yet who it is, but that was a lot of fun. We spent the whole pandemic working on it, so that was cool. I know I'm about to work with a band called Blackout Balter that they're killer. And I know I'm forgetting something. Anyway, yeah, a lot going. There's
loads going on,
and I love working on the independent stuff because there's so much passion behind it, and that sometimes when so many people business wise are involved in something, things get a little bit harder.
Yeah. Sure.
But with independent artists, it's just pure joy, and they love and passion. So it's always a lot of fun.
That's incredible. Thanks so much for sharing, man. That's brilliant. Justin, so let's have a chat about your studio, if that's good with you.
Absolutely.
And, I don't know if you can move your camera around maybe to show us a bit of the studio? Oh,
yes. Okay,
great.
so there's that's the console. It's an SSL 4000E, which hold on, it's backwards. There we go.
What I'll do is I'll remove myself from the live so you can show everyone around, man. So
okay, great. Go. Awesome. So this is my when we were looking for the console, that's kind of like the centerpiece of the studio. So we were looking at some Neves, which are awesome. I flew up to Canada and checked out an 80 series. But for my workflow and for a lot of the workflow that happens in town, it's best I felt like it was best to get an SSL where I could monitor the compression and EQ. If I liked it, I could print it. If not, just have it for playback, and kind of easily work on a higher track count. And then you save a ton of money. I mean, we got a really good deal on this, and the EQs sound amazing. It's an amazing desk. It was recently recapped, and we bought it in East Nashville, so it was easy to ship. We didn't have to, move it more than 10 miles, which was awesome. So that was a lucky. We found it on Craigslist.
What?
Yeah. So that was cool. And then I'm a huge fan of PMC monitors. So I started using them. I did a mix for Jared Neiman. It was Drink to That All Night. Ended up being a pretty successful record. But I did those on another set. I won't say what it was, but I was very surprised when I heard it other places. It didn't sound like what I had mixed it as, and so I went into the shop and I listened to. They had a pair of those, so I listened to what I had mixed it on. I was like, "Oh, well, that's my mix. That's it." Yeah. And then I switched to a few others, and I switched to the PMC 226s, and I was like, "Well, that's what I'm hearing everywhere else." And so I borrowed them for a couple of months. I finished the record, and I didn't have any surprises after that. So I was completely sold. So I bought those, and I mean, they were expensive. So it's like, well, okay, if I'm going to spend money, I'm going to spend money on monitors. I'll bite the bullet. But they were totally worth it. I think it's the most to find monitors that suit you. I think that's the best investment you can make. So when we were thinking about the mains, I said, "Oh, we've got to get the PMCs." So we got the PMC MB3s, and they're the kind of uplit red ones right there.
Oh man, they're amazing! Look great.
Oh man, they sound unbelievable. The low end is so quick. I mean, even at low volumes, they're very even, and they're workable even as mains, which is awesome. And then of course the NS10s, which I set my levels on them, make sure that I'm not fooling myself with the bass, make sure that I can hear the bass on small speakers and all of that. So that's that world there. And then
that's incredible.
Here's the kind of the gear rack. Okay, there we go. So these are a pair of 1066s they were actually from Pete Townsend's console, and they were Shep modified, but they're actual original 1066s with an added mid-range EQ, which is awesome. So then we have some 1081s, and this one, along with the 2254s, we got from Nikki Six, and he got those from Bob Rock. So I love the history of gear, and it's probably stupid, but I always love picturing other what records were made on it, what vocals went through this 1081. I like that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's great. Absolutely great.
Yeah. So here we have some old API 3124s, and they sound incredible. The only bummer, there's no phase button, and the phantom power switch is in the back. So this one is always on phantom. This one is always off, just in case you have a ribbon mic. The old inward connections vac rack. We've got 2 limiters and 2 mic pre's. I use these limiters as my drum crush, and they sound killer. I love them. I absolutely love these. And then I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of the Undertone Audio stuff.
Again, I've heard of them, but I've not listened to any.
These are amazing. I mean, I can't say enough about the company, and so it's Eric Valentine's company. He designed these, and I mean, it's a little bit complicated, but if you look on the website, I'm sure you could see what all of these kind of knobs and switches do. But basically, it can be as clean as you want, or it can be as colored as you want. You can add in, you can have no transformer on the input, or you can add in the transformer and choose either high or low impedance to match the mic. And then, of course, the mic gain. And then you can add or take out the transformer on the output. You can add a load, which there's some smart kid stuff that happens there, but basically it adds more harmonics and a little bit more color to it. And then you can put a 10 dB pad on the output and drive the mic pre in the transformer harder. So you get this kind of saturation and compression by driving it all harder. And I mean, just a brilliant design. And then he's so smart. He will have he, meaning Eric, will have a rack of these, buy this drum kit, and have the shortest mic line run as he can. And he put he put a switchable meter on. You can switch to each one of the channels, so you can kind of visually see, kind of how you're looking level wise. So you can have a super short mic run, and then have the long run be the line level. So you have optimal fidelity if you use it in that capacity. And then the front input jacks are handy also if we're doing any kind of control room, overdubs or anything. So these are killer. I love these. And then down here are the Coil Audio. There we go. Coil Audio. We have CA70s. We have 4 of them, and then 2 CA286s. And they're tube mic pre's that you'll have to check out the website for the specifics. But the key to these is this negative feedback. So I guess there were 2 kind of vintage tube designs, tube mic pre designs, and the difference would be where they set the negative feedback. And here, instead of having a fixed negative feedback, you can adjust it and kind of open it up or close it down, and kind of, so in one direction it gets really present in clear and sensitive, and then in the other direction it kind of gets woolly and warm. So they're really adjustable to your situation, and I love them on mix also, because I can run like stomps, claps, drums, anything that I want to kind of oversaturate and get that tube grit and distortion on. I can put it into line level, or just kind of crank the mic level up a little bit and then pull the output down. And you get this amazing distortion characteristic that I haven't been able to get it through plugins or anything like that. They're magical. I love these things. Now I actually got this from Kamamusky. It's a CBS Volumax, and it's solid state. And I don't know if it's broken or if it's supposed to sound this way, but it kind of lops off all the top end and it gives this kind of fluffy bottom end. So I send kind of a kick and snare blend to it, and it gives a cool kind of Motown sound that I get to blend in. In some songs, it's hotter than others, and it's a lot of fun. So we've got the retro stay level, which is great on bass, vocals, acoustic guitar, a few distressors, a BAE 10DC, which is really, really aggressive in a Neve kind of way. The 33609, this is Metal Knob 33609, that I have found on kick and snare is just unbelievable. And they're great on vocals and, lots of stuff, but I've been just lightly touching it on tracking, and I just can't believe how good it sounds. Just enough kind of slap to it. And then we've got the 2254s, which are gorgeous. I use them on every single electric guitar I do. I don't know what it does. I can't describe it, but it's just it makes the guitar sound amazing. We've got the Shadow Hills, which is basically like an LA3 and an SSL quad compressor all in one. The Tube Tech, which I use on vocals all the time, and a few different looks at the 1176. We've got this kind of the UA Classics new one. It's super clean. This is a revision D, so it's got a lot of color. And then you got the purple, which is pretty aggressive. So they all kind of sound different. And then the DBX 160s, they came with a studio, super colorful, gooey and grabby. And then over here, I've got, let's see, here I've got the AMS RMX. That came with the studio. It works perfectly, and it's really hard to find one that is not completely messed up. And then this is a cool EXR psychoacoustic projector. I don't use it too often, but it's basically like a BBE sonic maximizer, but it's not too over the top. So I really like that. The Primetime 2 classic mono delay. This is the reissue Pultec EQP 1A3. I hear no difference between this and the vintage one. It's just magic on vocals, bass, kick, acoustic, you name it. And then we've got the ADR vocal stressor. This is the mono version. It's got an EQ and a compressor, limiter, super smash. It's great for like a mono drum crush. Also, different color than the CBS, but I'll use that as a this kind of crush and blend. And this is the Undertone Audio Unfairchild, and the same company that makes the mic pre's, and they did an outstanding job. It's a bit more modern and clean than a vintage Fairchild. Actually, I went over to Addiction Studios with Dan Kalmusky, or Dave Kalmusky, and he was playing me. So he's got one that his engineer Ethan had built. That's a replica of an original. He was playing that against this, and there was definitely a different color between the two. And this is a bit more modern, not quite as thick, and which for me works out perfectly. And you have the ability to use variable attack and release, and to quickly adjust the DC threshold, which adjusts basically where the threshold is and how much it's going to compress. So I love this. I use it all the time. And then this is the very first piece that I purchased. There we go. It's an RCA BA6A. And they make a plugin. Acoustica Audio makes a plugin called the L-Ray that emulates that. And it's a 1950s Varimu compressor limiter. And it is unbelievable. It just makes everything sound bigger. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's great on vocals, bass, acoustic guitar, really anything. And I got it because Mike Shipley was using that as his vocal chain when I was working with him. And first of all, like just kind of to remember him because he was such a big part of my career, but then also it just sounded so good. So then got a pair of Shadow Hills Gammas, some 550Bs. These are older ones. This is a Cappy VP312, which is like an API. I actually just got this because I wanted to build something and see if I could do it. And I did, and I had a lot of fun doing it. This is a Lexicon. I've actually never used it. MX400. I need to go through it and see if there are any cool sounds, but it was laying around, so we put it in. And then this is a Shep Neve 1073 or two Shep Neve 1073s, and actually they are the same deal as the other ones. They're vintage 1073s with the Mariner transformers, all original. The only thing different is the additional mid-range band that was added by Shep. And I mean, they just sound amazing, and I love them. And then we've got over here the SPL Iron, which is super mastering compressor. It's got this airbase feature that adds a bit of top and a bit of bottom. Post compression, kind of what you lose in the compression, it adds it back. Or there's a tape roll off to simulate tape. I mean, this is such a cool piece. It can be super clean and transparent. You can change the rectifier to get the color that you want. They have all these different EQ curves for the side chain. You can adjust the tube bias, so you do either more kind of a more aggressive compression or a less aggressive one. Anyway, killer piece. And then a few 500 pieces. The API 529, which is similar to the 2500. The Pultec EQP 500A. I thought, by looking at it, and this is what you didn't do. I feel bad about it. For a while, I looked at it. I was like, no, it can't sound that good. It's the 500 series, whatever. This thing is incredible on bass, on vocals, and it does the Pultec thing. It sounds amazing, and it's very approachable. Then we've got the was it Electrodyne EQ, really musical, gorgeous EQ, 550s, some 560s, and then the radio, what are they? XTCs for adding any kind of guitar pedals. And there we go.
That is insane.
Okay, a couple other small pieces, and then let me go into the machine room. Hold on.
Oh, cool, man.
We're still working on this, but it's such a cool piece. So this.
I think we've just lost.
And we have the tube preamp, but
cool.
The cool thing with this is the history. Just think of all the huge records that were cut, and use this exact reverb on it, and it looks really cool. We have the cover off because we're still fixing it, but that's pretty killer. And then we've got Bro Mothership and Bricasti up there, and some fun stuff.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's for years I was just mixing pretty much in the box, a couple of outboard pieces here and there.
Yeah.
Completely kind of changed my mix approach. So now what I do is I have a patch setup sheet that I have. There we go. You can't really see it, but basically all of my I set up signal chains, and I have that as my hardware insert list. So I can just go on, whichever track and then add a hardware insert and then get the sound. And then if I like it, I commit it. And then I don't worry about recalling it. That's just my new starting point. And then I can mix. I have all of that analog saturation, all that analog color, but it's already printed, and then I can recall in a second. And it's been working really well for me lately. So that's that. And then the tracking room, we've got one kind of mid-sized live room. We've got a Yamaha C7 piano. We've got a B3. We've got a Whirly. There's another vocal booth back there. A few guitar ISO booths. Yeah, and the room sounds killer. The drums sound amazing. When we were building it, I had to plug in. Here we go. When we were building the studio, you don't know what it's going to sound like. Put on all this effort in, build out the walls, and then it's eventually time to put up some mics and go, hey, well, what's it sound like? And luckily, the first session that we had, I turned up the room mics and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was hoping it was just going to be like, okay, fine, we can record it here, or we can book another studio to, if we have a big enough budget.
Yeah.
But no, this is the place that I would want to record. And so it was, a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, you know that your money's been well spent at the end of the day, really,
Yeah. And I couldn't be happier with the setup. And
amazing.
So anyway, that's a little bit
incredible, man. Absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
It's just wonderful studio. It's lovely, and it's great just to see the fact that you've got all this amazing gear, and I know that you're using the NS10s as well on the back. You see on so many forums, everyone going, "Oh, I hate the NS10s." Yeah, everyone still uses them. You've got all this crazy gear, and the NS10s are still sitting on your desk as well.
Absolutely. Well, so for me, I don't think anyone goes, oh man, I love listening to NS10s. They sure do sound good. They are an extremely useful tool. And for me, the way that I use them is, sometimes if I'm, I'll add in a sub. We have a little mod where we have a PMC sub in the back, and I can kind of like the dangerous monitor where you can add the sub in to any set or take it out and kind of adjust the level with it. So I can listen to it with the sub, or listen to the NSNs with the sub, but I prefer listening as low as I can on the NS10s, and especially passively listening, kind of, either looking at my phone or playing a game or something like that. And I can really hear, like, things will kind of poke out to me where they don't if I'm just sitting right there and listening. And also for writing vocals, I think it's great. And then just generally listening to see it, does it have the energy? Can you hear the bass in them. See where things sit in a kind of a more practical environment. Although most speakers now, even cheap ones, sound better than the NS10s.
Yeah.
Speaker technology has come a long way.
It's incredible. What speakers are out there now with, the fact that, you can get a really good, three-way speaker now for a home studio, which you would have never dreamt to been able to do that. And headphone technology as well, man. So headphone technology is crazy.
Yeah, and so the ones that you have, I forget what they're called, but I've heard them before and they sound great.
Yeah, Odyssey, LCDXs. Yeah,
yes.
they're brilliant. Really good. A friend of mine suggested them. And so I use, so my main gig is mastering, and I use an ADI2 Pro FS Black Edition. So I love RME as my A to D to A converter. And they said, oh man, you should check out the headphone jack on there. So put the headphones in. I'm there going, there it is. That's the sound that I want. So if I'm, working at my home studio or wherever at 1 o'clock in the morning, if the family are asleep, I can just be not maybe listening to the lows, but I can be listening to maybe the mids and the highs. And I was talking to Amir last week, who our guest last Friday, and he said that he uses the LCDXs as well, and he loves them, absolutely loves them. Bob Katz, I think he uses the headphones like 2 above, because he recognized them when we interviewed him a few weeks ago. I know that he really likes Odyssey as well. So yeah, or he should have said. But yeah, they sound great. What headphones do you use, man? Do you use any headphones, or is it mainly speakers? Is that how you roll?
Well, I do listen to headphones. I listen not all the time. It depends on what it is. And I have now, after living in this room for a little over a year, I don't really have the need as much as I used to, because I know the room's really good.
Yeah.
But I do like, I have Grados that I got a pair of Grados in, what are they, 328s or 3s, whatever the 3 series is, 325s maybe. Anyway, Grado Labs, they sound killer. They're the most uncomfortable headphone you'll ever wear. You're good for about 30 minutes max in these things. I think they're made for a torture device, but they sound great. They're a little bit light on the low end,
of course.
But they're open backs, and they have great imaging, real good detail. So I know those. I've used them since college. I've gone through. I'm on my second pair, but they're great. The other ones, the Sennheiser HD 650s.
Oh yeah, great pair of headphones.
Yeah. So the assistant Kyle Blunt, who's here, he has those, and I used them all the time when I was over at Bob's, and then Bob convinced Bob to get a pair. So they're very useful. I love those. They're super comfortable. They sound great. They're maybe a bit warmer than the Grados. But for me currently, I'll get in my car and I'll put these on to listen. So I'll check my mixes on just the Apple, earbuds, and then I've got a pair of the Bose Quiet Comfort noise canceling headphones, and so I'll check my mixes on this and the Bose, and I find between the speakers and those 2 sets of headphones, I can get a sense of the landscape, and make whatever changes I need to make.
That's incredible. So good. Thanks for sharing, Justin. Tell us about the plugins that you're enjoying at the minute. So I know you've got this crazy wall of outboard gear that you've got in the studio. And so do you, obviously I know you've got your outboard stuff, do you work in a hybrid setup, or is it mainly just the outboard stuff that you tend to use, or do you use some plugins as well?
I definitely use kind of all of the above. The gear for me is kind of like a broad stroke thing. So I'll do, that's Togs Salter. He's
all right, just hiding in the background. Hi.
So Togs is a producer and a songwriter, amazing producer, and then And then there's Scott Hellman. He's an artist. And they're laughing. Anyway, they're in the B room, and they're a lot of fun and very talented. I'm waving to them. And so anyway, so plugin wise, that's for more of the detail stuff, the carving. So I love the for carving EQ, both the MDW EQ6, the Massenburg, like that's super fast, super clean. I can, if you hit the button, it goes to a really small Q, and you can sweep and find the frequency you want to dip. So that's like, I have to have that plugin. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then the Fab Filter stuff is out of this world. Yep. So I'll use that, the EQ for, a lot of dynamic EQ for filtering, for additive stuff, some dynamic addition EQ, so that's I just love that stuff. And then their compressor is amazing too.
Oh, the C2.
Yeah. So a lot of times, like I'll do kind of my broad stroke compression with, get the color out of the gear, and then even on vocals, I'll add that on to really clamp it down, or fantastic. They make fantastic plugins. And then Togs actually turned me on to the Pro L2 for my. So when I send out mixes, I'll do kind of like a fake master. In Nashville, we call it the heater mix.
All right.
So people don't go, oh well, it's too quiet. So I'll run it through the Pro L2, and they have enough, several presets there that are really good. Transparent and the all around and the modern seem to be the three to go between. And then so that's Fab Filter stuff is pretty awesome. I'm going to check out their delay. They just came out with a new delay plugin.
I've seen that. Yeah, looks great.
Yeah, so that looks really cool. I've got the Plugin Alliance Mega Bundle.
Yeah.
So I'm always discovering new plugins there. The Lindell, like the 1081 or the Neve channel is really good.
Yeah.
I love the BX 4000E. So like I'll use that as kind of my go-to plugin. I know it's ridiculous because I've got that.
You got the real deal.
Yeah, but it's easier, to have a plugin. Just I'll throw that up, and it sounds so close to this that it's super easy. So that Brainwork stuff is killer. So that, and the 9000 is super cool. And the G is really good. And then the what's the EQ? It's like the hybrid, or they have the hybrid, and then they have the digital. Those are great. And I actually learned about the SPL Iron because they have the Iron plugin, and that's
and
it's amazing. And on that, it's cool because sometimes I'll use that for the width control and maybe a little mid side, and then I'll also run it through the hardware piece because it doesn't do that. The Plugin Alliance stuff, I'm always discovering new because there's so many plugins.
It's crazy. Absolutely. Have you tried the I was really fortunate and blessed. I went on the Plugin Alliance Facebook group, and Dirk was asking for beta testers for their new limiter, for the True Peak limiter.
Oh, I tried it.
Yeah, I've tried it as well. Before it got released, it's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I was actually trying to talk Togs into using it, but yeah, I love it. I need to work on. I forget what they call it. There's the foundation or something like that.
Yeah,
and there's like the percentage, and I need to tweak it. I got into it. I got it sounding really, really good. And I kind of switched between the Pro L2 and I was like, oh man, that True Peak it's killing it right now. So it's awesome. The metering's great on it. I love that plugin.
It's nuts. But what I love as well, though, is about plugins, because I'm primarily in the box, but it's just the fact that there's new developers coming out all the time with new stuff. And this is actually what we're going to be doing on the community. We've actually just launched this today, because we've just agreed an affiliate deal with Plugin Boutique.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so there's like 157 companies on there for us to explore. But we thought, like, which is bonkers. But what we thought, though, rather than going, oh, let's review everything, we thought, let's all learn as a community together, and let's do like a monthly hangout as well, where, you know, we can go into a Zoom chat like we're doing now, but have like a few of us, and we can all talk about the plugins. But weekly we can chat, you know, maybe just have like 2 plugins a week that we analyze, that we road test, and then just say, oh, have you tried this function? Have you tried that? And then we can kind of teach each other as well at how to use the plugins.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great fun, man. It's like the feedback today has been great from the community, and everyone's really excited. But what we're doing as well, just so I think you're probably already aware, is the money that basically that we make, you know, been honest, because, you know, this is how it works. But to run the community, obviously we need to run things like StreamYard and, you know, Adobe, do video editing, all that sort of stuff as well. And we're looking to do seminars eventually as well, and travel around to different studios. But we're going to give 10% to Music Cares, because, you know, Music Cares is such a phenomenal charity in what they do. And we're going to give 10% to Help Musicians as well, which are based out in the UK. You know, we just want to support, man. And we thought that, you know, if we can just educate and learn about all these crazy cool plugins and give back at the same time, it's like, let's just have fun with it, you know, let's just roll, you know.
That's awesome. And that's great too, because different people either use the plugins differently or find little things that they do really well, and so getting different people's opinions on them is great. That's the nice thing about you know, having Togs in the B room, is so he's on Ableton, which I've started using, and Ableton is awesome.
Yeah,
Ableton is super cool. But, you know, so he teaches me things about that, and I teach him things about how I use the plugins, and, you know, how I like to sculpt, you know, really carve out, you know, frequencies, and so it's great to bounce ideas off of each other, and almost be like it's almost like a contest. Like, you know, oh yeah, well, look what you can do on this plugin. Well, yeah, look what you know. So it's fun to have that kind of a community, you know, kind of give their opinions and ideas and stuff.
Absolutely. And I think as well, it's great because how we've got a real good mix of different skill sets on the community as well. So like pros such as yourself and all the other pros that are on the community, and the amateurs and the intermediates, and everyone is just learning from one another. But like we said, like when we were off camera off the live a few minutes ago, that you know, you might get a newbie who's just tried out a brand new plugin and said, oh, have you tried this function? And then a pro will then go, oh, not tried that, let's give that a go, and it could end up on a client's mix. You know, it's like,
yeah,
it could happen.
Absolutely happens. I mean, I always keep my ears open, because I've learned so much from like interns, or, you know, new assistants, young assistants, you know, so I try to always keep my ears open and absorb, you know. You learn a whole lot by keeping your mouth shut.
Absolutely. It's just so exciting to learn from one another. So thanks so much for that, Justin. So with your I asked this to all our engineer friends, with your ears, how do you look after your ears? So do you go for checkups, or do you have any routines that you go through?
You know, I need to go and properly do checkups and everything. I'm very cautious. I never listen loud. I mean, I'll check at a decent volume, but recently my Apple Watch, I'll sit and I'll put it on the what is it? There's like a meter, like a dB meter, and so it'll turn yellow if it's, you know, above I think 80 dB or maybe 85 dB. You know, so I will keep watch on that. And generally speaking, though, like I do a lot of my mixing at a very very low level. I was working with a producer and he called it headphone level. So it's like, it. But for me, if you can get excitement out of a mix at a low level, especially on the NS10s, then when you put it on the bigs, it'll still be exciting and everything. And so I'll check it loud on the bigs, make sure that there isn't anything just obnoxious. But most of my listening is at a pretty reasonable or low level.
Yeah.
And then for me, being in Nashville, there are a lot of allergies. We're kind of in a bowl, and there's a lot of pollen. In fact, if I go out to my car right now, it'll be covered in like a yellow dust.
All right.
It's insane, the pollen here. So so every morning, I take allergy medicine. I use a nasal rinse, and then I have I use Flonase or like the nasal spray, like allergy. I think it's I think it's a steroid, and all of that to kind of keep everything open. Because if you have allergies and your ears close up, you're kind of done for the day.
Yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, completely.
No.
Yeah.
And yeah, I try to abide by the rule of thumb. Don't stick anything bigger than or sharper than your elbow in your ear, So I don't use Q-tips or anything. I've been using, there's a thing called Neilmed, like ear wax cleaner that I'll use sometimes if it gets bad. But I could be better. I could see an audiologist and everything, but generally I don't like to listen loud at all. I always wear ear protection if I'm going, to a show or, even placing a mic. I use noise canceling headphones on the tractor when I'm mowing on the weekend, doing the dad thing.
Yeah.
So just trying to protect against that. I mean, yeah, I don't. They're so sensitive, and if you lose it, it can really affect you.
Yeah, completely. It's so important. What about so with COVID as well in Nashville at the minute as things stand? So has the live scene started opening up again? So what's going on over there?
Yeah, so Nashville and Tennessee in general, through the whole COVID process, it has been a lot more open than many other places. Right now, I don't know at what capacity, but I know downtown it's like COVID never happened, But so that is definitely, downtown is definitely coming back, and I know a lot of live, people who make their living downtown, either playing or doing live shows and stuff. They're, finally making a living again, and hopefully they're vaccinated or wearing masks, being safe. Here in the studio, we've been very cautious. I've got a HEPA filter that I run all the time. We're cleaning constantly, wearing masks. Except now, I'm fully vaccinated. The assistant's fully vaccinated. Togs is fully vaccinated. So everyone's kind of getting into this, and a lot of the session musicians are vaccinated now.
Yeah.
So I did a tracking session the other day, and we all did a check. We had our masks on, and we're like, okay, you're fully vaccinated. We can do this. And we took off our masks, and it was amazing. So yeah, things are starting to definitely get back to more of a normal, life, which is good.
Amazing. I just can't wait to go back to festivals again and be back in that environment. I don't know if you go to many gigs, and festivals and stuff, but did you go to many festivals and gigs when you're not in the studio before COVID?
I would go to a few, much more so before I had kids.
Yeah.
Kids kind of put a damper on it, but still, like, unless it was a band that I really, really wanted to see, or a bunch of my friends were going out.
Yeah.
I after working all day, tuning vocals or comping or whatever. Like sometimes I'd be I don't. I don't want to go out. I don't want to listen. Like my wife loved karaoke.
All right, okay.
I'd be like, no, I've dealt with enough out of tune vocals. I don't want to do that.
You're like, where's the auto tune? Where's the auto tune?
Yeah, like I can't fix it. I can't. So that was like, yeah, pre-kids, pre-COVID. I would do it only if I had to. but yeah, it will be nice to go out to some shows. I mean, in Nashville, you could go down to Broadway on a Tuesday evening and, with 3 people in the audience and see some amazing artist. It's crazy, the talent pool here. It's like I said before, it's like no other place on earth.
Absolutely. And, when we were talking with David Kalmusky a couple of weeks ago, he said exactly the same thing. And Bob Olson, Bob mentioned on the community recently, he said he's been here been in Nashville, for 20 years. And he's still, discovering about Nashville and, the music culture. And it's amazing. It's so phenomenal to hear about all the adventures that all the engineers like yourself get up to over in Nashville. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic, man. So before I forget, I did forget to ask you this one. Your converters, what converters are you using in the studio at the minute?
Yeah, Burl. We have a Burl mothership, with currently, eventually it'll be 40 by 40, but right now it's 32 in and 40 out with we've got an AES card in there. But I never use the AES card, so I could use those extra inputs. So I think eventually I'll either swap it out or get another 8-channel input. But those converters are unbelievable. I don't know if you're familiar with the Burl products or not.
I've seen the Burl products, but again, I've not listened. I'll have to have a listen, man.
I've
heard good things.
They're amazing. So all of the A to Ds have transformers on them, which they sound so musical, and they're, I think, based off of like an MCI tape machine. From what I understand, the guy who started the company and developed them, he also made the 2192 by UA, which was amazing. That was a great, stereo. It was a D to A and an A to D. It sounded amazing. So he designed these, and he was a huge analog nut, and he loved the MCI tape machine, and all of those inputs had transformers on them, and so he did the same thing with these, and they're just so musical. It's not overly colored, and the transient response is actually, I feel like it's actually better than some of the kind of cleaner converters. And we also have an 8-channel Apogee Symphony MK2, which we use for more kind of like remote recording, or if we have a dual rig setup, sometimes I'll record audio off of the console for like a video or something like that, and that's great. They're super clean and fantastic. Anything that's good enough for Bob Clearmountain is, say no more.
Absolutely.
So anyway, but the Burl, that's the main rig at the studio.
Incredible. Thanks so much, Justin. So before you go, if that's cool, we've got some comments that have been sent through by the community, if that's cool with you.
Yes.
Amazing. Let's have a quick look. So let's see what they're saying. So we've had a comment said, so we drove through Nashville and Memphis. It's gorgeous down there, and the fried chicken was amazing.
Nashville hot chicken is often imitated, never duplicated, or whatever that saying is. I like Hattie B's. I know it's maybe a little and it's not as authentic as Prince's, but there are more locations, and Prince's is really hard to get to, but it's delicious. But yeah, Nashville hot chicken is amazing.
I'll check it out one day, man. Sounds incredible. Absolutely. So we've got another comment saying Soul Asylum's album Delayed Reaction is killer too. So I know that you're a big Soul Asylum fan.
I'll have to check him out. I got to see him live for the first time in Minnesota. A friend of mine actually used to play drums for him, or will, from time to time play drums.
Oh,
and
cool.
And he got me into a show, and I felt like, once again, my 16-year-old self was just going insane. So, and I played it for my daughter not too long ago, and she loved it. My son loved it too. So I'll have to. What's the name of the album again?
It's called Delayed Reaction.
Delayed Reaction. Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out.
It's crazy. That's awesome. So cool, man. Yeah, so I had to. It's really interesting. So myself and my other half, we went to go see Frank Turner. If you've heard of Frank Turner,
I've heard. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you anything.
Stuff. He does a lot of stuff. Has done some stuff recently with Fat Mike from NoFX.
Oh, okay.
But Jimmy Eat World was supporting as well. But then a few weeks ago, we got Frank on Produce, Mix, Fix, and Conquer as well. So bearing in mind, myself and my other half, we went to go see Frank in his packed out venue where we could barely see him. And then and then a few weeks ago, I'm talking to Frank and having a chat. It's lovely, man. It's so great and humbling when people want to hang and do cool stuff. For the inner, like you said, the inner 16-year-old.
Oh yeah,
it's so cool.
That's awesome.
It's great. So we also got acoustical audio's L Ray. So someone giving some L Ray love. Do you use any acoustical audio stuff, Justin, or have you got any plugins?
I actually do have the L Ray. And I've got the Gold 3. Yep. And the only thing, the technology that they use does not work well with Pro Tools. Yeah. And I can only get like one or two instances, no matter how fast the computer is. And I brought it up to them also, and they said, yeah, it's a limitation within Pro Tools. So now that I'm learning Ableton, and I'm going to be doing more on that, I'm actually excited to try out more of their plugins, because what I have sounds amazing. I've got the Scarlett also. I think it's Scarlett. Anyway, I've got 3 of their bundles, and they all sound great. I just can't use a whole lot of them, or sometimes any of them, depending on the mix. Yeah, I'm looking forward to unearthing those within Ableton and really enjoying them. So
fantastic. And since you mentioned, I've got Ableton as well, and I barely ever touch it because I go onto the screen, and it just confuses the hell out of me. I don't know about you, like compared to say normal DAW compared to something like Pro Tools or Logic, but I know it's amazing. But how are you getting to grips with Ableton at the minute? Are you enjoying it?
Sitting down with Togs and having him show me where things, and that was the same problem that I had, because I'm like, what am I looking at? I have no idea what I'm looking at. But so he had converted, and he basically locked himself away for a month and did nothing else but learn Ableton, and he's quite fast at it. So once I figured out the lay of the land and everything, it's interesting because Pro Tools started off like its kind of roots are in editing and that sort of thing. Ableton is more of like a music creation thing. So you can move at the speed of your creative mind. It's amazing when you figure it out, how quickly you can make a song and how quickly you can adjust everything. Like it's such an amazing creative tool. But once I got the lay of the land, it's actually it works the same way. It's just figuring out where everything is, and it's weird that the menus are kind of over there your plugins are with folders, and it's
an
odd layout. And the way that they like their the GUI for all of their plugins, and it's odd. But then once you figure it out, I find it pretty intuitive-ish.
Yeah, I think I'm going to set myself a challenge. I might one day record a band just using Ableton and mix it in Ableton and see how that process goes. It might be good fun to do that.
Yes, you should. That's exactly what I need to do. I've gotten mixes from people in Ableton and kind of worked around in their mix. But I haven't started from scratch and recorded in Ableton. I need to figure that out.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. It's just great that someone else is kind of, learning a new DAW as well. It's fantastic. Thanks, mate. So Brian Cook has said, so Brian's been one of our guests. Brian, a phenomenal mix engineer. And so Brian said, thanks for doing this, Justin and Rich. So thanks a lot, Brian. And we've got Bop Studios, Cool Edit Pro, apparently way back, I think. Was the name of one of the DAWs I think we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Vaguely remember Cool Edit.
Yeah, I did college dorm room recordings. Was Cool Edit Pro, and I was terrible at it. I had no idea what I was doing.
Amazing. So cool. What before you go, what was your first ever DAW that you used? Was it Cool Edit Pro?
Edit Pro. Yeah.
No way. That's cool.
But like I said, first of all, it was a cracked version. It was on a PC, and I had no idea what I would have been a sophomore. And at MTSU, you didn't get into any of the like proper recording classes until your junior year, or third year. I'm not sure if it's the same terminology in the UK. But I just remember. Oh God, they must have been the worst recordings ever. Probably the worst recordings in mankind.
You got to start somewhere, though, haven't you?
I started right there at the bottom. That's the best place, I think.
Completely. You got to learn from scratch. Oh, I think we missed a comment. We've got a comment from Bubba James said, "What exactly does a studio assistant do?" He's asking.
That's a good question. So what the assistant will do is I'll send him a setup sheet, and especially for tracking, he'll set up all the mics, plug them in, make sure I've all my signal chains are patched in correctly, and it's a good bit of work doing a full band setup, and make sure everything's laid out on the console right. The console's normaled or recalled to a specific setting. Label all the gear, and then he'll also run Pro Tools during the tracking session in Nashville. So I do a lot of tracking sessions where we cut 10 to 15 songs, full tracks, and overdubs in a day.
Wow.
And it's just these session guys who are unbelievable. They've never heard these songs before.
Yeah.
They either chart them out on the fly or they have these charts. And it's just one or two takes, and it sounds like a record. And it's absolutely amazing. And so the assistant will actually read the chart and follow along with the chart. And the guitarist will say, "Hey, I got to fix line 4, bar 5. Get me in." They use Nashville numbers, so it's all like chord changes. So it's like a number. Yeah. So they'll get me in at the 4 split 5, and then get me out at the 1. And so he knows exactly where to go, gives 2 bars pre-roll, gets him in and out, and then next fix. So the assistant has a lot to do. It's a really hard job, and it's very stressful. So it's probably the hardest job, to be honest with you, and the least thankful. But you got to be on your game, especially in Nashville. So anyway, that's it.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for that, Justin. Oh, and Mike, who's one of our moderators on our community, has been watching, and he's just saying your gear is insane. I completely agree. That wall, you were talking, Justin, earlier on, like during the interview, going, oh, I kind of, I don't know what you were saying. So you're saying that you're a collector, and just you suddenly realise that years later, just looking at that wall, you go, yeah. Definitely, completely agree.
Yeah,
so
there's
cool.
There's a little bit of stuff. Well, yeah, it's fun. I don't know what else to say.
No, completely. It is fun. Absolutely, it's so cool. Yeah. So thanks so much for today, though, Justin. Man, I've just had so much fun with you, and it's been an absolute honor chatting away with you as well. So, but before you go, what's next on your journey? So, what you're looking to do? Looking forward to the future.
Next up, I'm excited about opening and really working in the studio. So, we've never been, open with, when it's not in the middle of a pandemic. So, basically to see what all we do here. It's also exciting. I'm getting into more production, and I'm getting a whole lot of mix work from all kinds of international artists. So that's a lot of fun, and really honing my workflow, trying to be as efficient and still creative as possible. Yeah, that's it. Just trying, just building and see where everything goes.
Incredible. That's brilliant. Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. Feel free.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
It's been great fun, man. Absolutely great fun. And thank you everyone for joining. Justin, feel free to hang when we go off the live to hang up before you go, if that's cool with you.
Sure.
Thanks, man. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been joining live today as well and hanging out with Justin and myself. If you're on our Facebook community, feel free to also check out our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/produce mix fix and conquer. And if you're on YouTube, feel free to join our community, which is, we were talking about this a couple of hours ago. It's nuts. It's grown from 3 members to well over 2,000, almost 2,400 audio engineers of all skill sets on our community. And we're just having an absolute blast at the minute. So that's facebook.com/groups/produce mix fix and conquer, and it's free, and it's where we all hang, and it's great fun. So yeah, Justin, thanks again, man, and
No
really
problem.
appreciate your time.
Yes,
thanks
for having me.
Cheers.